Welcome back to our study on Mark's Gospel. Today we are in chapter 11 and we are picking it up in verse 12. This is the Monday of Holy Week. Jesus comes to Jerusalem again for a second time. In the last video, we talked about his entry into Jerusalem on Sunday. He went back out into the area around Bethany and he slept the night away and then wakes up and he is hungry. Mark describes him as hungry, and seeing off in the distance a fig tree, he went to see the fig tree to see if there were figs up on it. And he comes to the fig tree and it's only leaves, there's no fruit, so he curses it and walks away. This is a strange event for the disciples. They remember it, they hear it, but we should notice that Passover is in the months of March, April. It is not in the summertime. Figs come ripe in the summertime. So Jesus should not have expected ripe figs on a fig tree. And his cursing of it is a little strange. Why would he expect ripe figs on a fig tree? Even if he's hungry, why would he expect that when it's not the season? We don't go to apple trees in July expecting ripe apples. We go to apple trees in July expecting shade, but not to satiate our hunger. So we have to ask what Jesus is expecting. And I think that will be spelled out in the next video where we talk about what Jesus was expecting and what the consequences were. Because Mark is going to use here his tactic of an inclusio, or what we call a Markan sandwich, where he's opening up this story here. He's going to interrupt it with Jesus entering the temple and then come back to it immediately after, giving that story some new life in a different direction. So we're going to leave that aside for now and we'll pick it up in the next video. But Jesus enters into Jerusalem. He goes into the temple where he sees money changers and people buying and selling in the temple. Now, it is hard to know exactly what Jesus is confronting here, but I don't think it is the actual practice of the money changers. I don't think it is the selling of animals. He might be confronting the location of these money changers. He might be confronting where they are doing business, but I don't even think that's the real issue. I think the real issue is the mindset behind the money changers. So to give you a little bit of background, Jesus walks into the temple and he confronts these money changers who are taking Roman and other foreign coins and giving and exchanging them for coins that can be used in the temple. And there's, of course, a little bit of a markup. There's a little bit of an exchange rate that the customer pays. So the person who's doing the exchange is not exchanging it one-to-one so much as giving this person a good price and then keeping a little bit for profit. The reason that this had to happen is because coins, foreign coins, especially Roman coins that would have been common in Judea at the time, often had the image of emperors or even the goddess Roma or other gods and goddesses from the Roman pantheon on them. They would have had iconography that Jews would have seen as blasphemous. These coins could not be used in the temple itself. They could not be used in for paying temple taxes or for contributing to alms for the temple. That would have been an anathema to Jews. Instead, they would give pilgrims coins minted by the temple itself. These coins would have images of things like the olive branches or menorahs on them, icons that were amenable to the Jewish tastes and would not be considered blasphemous or idolatrous. So if you were a pilgrim coming into Jerusalem, you did not have to carry temple coins. You would carry the coins that you had. You would walk up to one of these money changers, you would lay down your Roman coin, and they would give you the rough equivalency in temple currency. You would then take that temple currency into the temple where you would donate it according to your needs, whether that was giving alms, paying tax, buying other things from the temple. You would have that exchange. Now, this was a needed practice for the worship in the temple because of the strict rules against idolatry. The other practice that was there that day is buying and selling, or not buying, selling cattle or animals, because it would not have been expected to carry doves or sheep or goats or cows on a multi-day or even multi-week journey to Jerusalem. You just wouldn't expect pilgrims to carry those animals and all of the necessary food for those animals for such a long journey. That would be impractical. So what people would do is they would save up money. They would bring that money to the temple, where they would buy animals from the temple and then use those in sacrifice. This would have been especially pertinent during the Feast of Passover, where everybody was required to have a lamb. And so people would be selling lambs in stalls outside of the temple proper. In the temple courtyards, people could buy their lambs. They could take them to have them slaughtered by the priests and then take them back to prepare them for the Passover. All of that would have been done on one day, because you don't want your lamb going bad because it's been slaughtered a couple days before. You want to have that fresh the day of. So that would have been going on the Thursday of Passover week. Now, what Jesus seems to be objecting to is not these practices as such. I don't think Jesus has a problem with keeping Roman coins out of the temple. He seems to be okay with that. He himself does not carry Roman coins, as we will see later in the discussions with the Pharisees. I think he's okay with the selling of animals. What Jesus seems to be confronting is that the temple is nothing more than this. The people who are running the temple have made it nothing more than a place to exchange money. It is not a place for worship. It is not being used the way that God would have the temple be used. It is used to keep people in power who are in power. It is used to keep people wealthy who are wealthy, and to keep people poor who are poor. In other words, it's used to maintain the status quo in a way that Jesus just does not like. And so he is confronting that. Now, we're going to see in a little bit how that plays out, because this sign act of cleansing the temple, as we call it, cannot be divorced from what happens in the rest of chapter 11 and in chapter 12. The confrontations that he has following this action give further insight into what the action was about. So don't just read this passage on its own and then expect to understand it completely. Jesus is going from, in Mark's gospel, he's getting up on Monday morning, cursing the fig tree, cleansing the temple, getting up Tuesday morning, seeing the results of the fig tree, and then begins a discussion with all of the major players in the temple and in the Jewish world. And it's through that conversation that we begin to understand the point of the triumphal entry and the point of the cleansing of the temple. It's not simply that he thinks that they're buying and selling in the temple, or that they're exchanging money and that's not right. It is what is going on behind those actions that Jesus has a problem with. And that's where we're going to pick up in the next video. Until we meet again, God bless.